Welcome back. This is Youth Ignited with me, Yaseen Kippie. Now, before the break, we were speaking about the epistemological frameworks which we understand the modern world. Do we understand it through the philosophy of Marxism? Do we understand it through the philosophy of secularism? Or do we understand it with the real, authentic understanding of the Sunnah, of the Prophet ﷺ, which is a non-judgmental understanding of various groups, but something that is united with the unity of Tawheed? Now, Mr. Shafiq, one of the main problems, and we have political issues, we have economic issues, but for the youth it's more a social phenomenon that they face. If we look at the statistics, really, on with regards to alcohol, with regards to drugs, premarital sex as well, according to the Family and Youth Institute, 56% of youth, Muslim youth, have had premarital sex, 40% drink alcohol, 70% has at least tried it once. This is really shocking statistics. If we look at social media, on the other hand, people have this sort of idealism which you have to be a certain way, or else when you go to school, to university, people are going to look at you differently. We have to come with the alcohol. Why is it the Muslim student who has to bring the alcohol? If you wear hijab on a photo, you'll get less likes than if you don't wear hijab. How do you understand this, and what do you think the solution to the social dilemma and real problem that we are facing?
Okay, Yaseen, let me just quickly contextualize what's happening in the world today. What we are seeing, particularly amongst young people, we're seeing urbanization on a scale we've never ever seen in human history. In the next 20 years, 60% of humanity is going to be urban center based, which means that the majority of youth are going to be living in urban centers. And with that comes a whole host of challenges and things that we have to face. For example, a more urban-centered lifestyle focuses more on materialistic things, whereas in a rural scenario where there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of interdependence. So what happens in the urban situation, you get the concept of what you would call the nuclear family and the nuclear individual.
Okay.
The Holy Trinity, I, me, and mine.
Okay.
It's a materialistic selfishness, which is unfortunately a sign of the times. This is just an aspect of the challenge that young people face. The other challenge that young people face in the world is that the power in the world, the political and economic power, is not in the hands of young people. And then the third aspect you have, it's becoming a very confusing world because of the amount of useless information that is floating around, particularly on social media and the internet.
Okay.
Now you add all of this together with socioeconomic reality. And the socioeconomic reality is that in most countries, the population graph is skewed towards young people. Unemployment is skewed more towards young people. So what does it tell us? It tells us that there's a high level of frustration. Young people are getting degrees, and then civil engineers are ending up sweeping streets. Economists are driving the trucks, that kind of stuff. So how do we deal with all of this? Young people are understandably frustrated. A lot of them feel totally alienated into the world that they're coming. So if you are not centered, you're going to grab onto any value that comes your way. You're going to embrace this materialism because it's a very short cut to what appears to be the solution. Ultimately, we know that you're chasing mirages in the sand. But just very briefly, that is what we have to understand before we start to talk about what youth has to face.
Well, now we've seen with the recent Fees Must Fall protests, the decolonization efforts, really this frustration coming to a manifestation.
It's a perfect example of it.
Exactly, and sometimes even violent. I mean, I was chucked off the bus once.
You see, I've seen young people are angry. And I wish older politicians and leaders and even people in the economic sector would just sit back and ask themselves, why are young people angry? Why are they frustrated? Why are they doing what they're doing? Because I think if they did, they would suddenly realize that they will have to change a lot of things which will make them uncomfortable, that they would also realize that a lot of systems that we think work today are not working.
Yeah, well, that's one of the hypocrisies I find of really the elite leadership that both politically and also religiously, we find the politicians speaking about, oh, the youth are the problem. Why are they wanting all these free things, you know? And with regards to the religious rhetoric, oh, it's always the youth. Why are they on drugs? What is the problem? We blame society, but we are society.
We have to be part of the solution.
Absolutely. And so when many of my friends, when they ask these scholars, help us, we want to know about our religion, they go to the politicians, help us, we want to actually face these challenges together, they get an answer of really disillusionment. Well, let's do it now, but when they come to them, oh, let's wait for the next week and the next week, and this process, one nightmare after the next, just keeps on going, and so there's this distrust in the leadership that is currently there. And this happened historically. This is what we see in Marxist Russia, in the Soviet Union. This is what we saw in so many of the other areas of history. Do you think that this will just repeat itself in becoming a bloody revolution, especially since you had Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, but the 2005 curriculum changed to Generation 30%. And so this has changed radically the mindset of what it means to struggle. And I found amongst the youth, they have this romanticized version of apartheid. Oh, our parents' generation, they went through that. What is our struggle? So we have to align ourselves to something. This is the same on the political scene and also the religious scene. Why are people joining ISIS? You know, this violent, totally against Islam, anti-Islam for that matter. Why are they joining this? Because they find it as a romanticized version of this. And so what do you see as the solution to this problem?
Yeah, again, a very deep and searching question. There is no one particular easy answer. Yeah. People are joining ISIS, for example, because they're angry, because they're dissatisfied, but also because there are people in this world who are exploiting that situation, and they exploit it by giving quick fix solutions, like saying a so-called modern caliphate is going to solve all our problems, when in fact when you analyze the modern caliphate, there's absolutely no infrastructure in it, and it even is unable to apply what we would call the Sharia meant for the benefit of all mankind, not the benefit of a small few. So what you see in essence is that history just repeats itself again and again. What we have to try and do is we have to try and break this cycle of anger and violence, particularly in the 21st century. People who have the power to empower others have to realize that they have a very, very serious responsibility. Our shuyukh, our molanas, our imams have to realize that they have to, and this is like a wajib, it's a farad upon them, yes, to teach younger people in a way that they can understand what they're being taught. Okay. As a Sufi sheikh once told me, don't tell people how they can go to hell, tell them how they can go to heaven. Okay. And that is how you start to transform society. I mean, I'll give you an anecdotal example of how you can swing things around. I met a young girl many, many years ago who came to me with some problems, and she'd fallen pregnant, and she'd married a Muslim girl. And she said, Shafiq, I feel very depressed, I've been told I'm going to hell because I committed sinna, etc. I said, listen, you married the man, you made what was haram, you attempted to make it halal. Surely you have to look at the Rahman and the Rahim. Surely there's going to be mercy for you. And I managed to change her perspective to the extent where she actually managed to change her whole life. I didn't do it, I was just a humble instrument. Yeah. But just an anecdotal example, she felt that because some idiot had condemned her, that she was condemned to hell for the rest of her life. How can we do this? Yeah. It's absolutely outrageous that some idiot told this person, you are going to go to hell for the rest of your life, when we forget about the qualities of forgiveness, we forget about the qualities of tolerance, the fact that we're all human and we all make mistakes, and part of the divine imperative is the fact that there is forgiveness for us. Okay, how does this go into the bigger picture? I think if we teach young people to understand that you've got to have values, going into the big bad world thinking that if you haven't got 70% of subject knowledge, you're an expert, it's not going to cut it. Yeah. That we have to strive for excellence. And I believe that young people are hungry for good things. I mean, human beings are hungry for good things. But it's a responsibility of my generation, who have failed quite spectacularly, to try and turn things around by showing people that there is a good way out, that goodness does exist in the world.
Yeah.
Sayyid Muhammad al-Maliki al-Alawi al-Hassani, may Allah bless him, one of the last things he told us before he died was, he said, Shafiq, you know, there's lots of facade and there's lots of hypocrisy in this world, but just remember that there's always goodness. We're Muslims, there's always goodness. And I've never forgotten what he said, because I think that is something that we need to take into ourselves and to give to other people. You know, smile is a charity. It goes to this simple level. If you make somebody else feel good, it doesn't matter who they are, they're going to make somebody else feel good. You're going to start a cycle of well-being. It's actually the simple things where we have to start. And from the simple things, from a small little seed, you can grow a pine tree that can be 30 meters into the sky.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Yeah, we forget that we are the Khalifatullah fil Ard. We are the vicegerents of God on earth. And the creation look upon us as Muslims for the answer to how Allah and God's vision is upon us. Do we respond to these challenges with hatred? Or do we start and violence, or do we respond to this with moderation, with tolerance and love, which is really the fundamental names and qualities of Allah? Ar-Rahman, the entirely merciful; Ar-Rahim, the especially merciful; Al-Wadud, the most loving. All of these qualities are meant to be inculcated within us. This is the solution to the problem that we find ourselves in. We are not by our nature egotistical people. We are supposed to, we are anta bil ruh, la bil jasadi insan. You are by your soul, not your ego, not your body, not your mind, a human being. And so this is the fundamental message that we have brought to you today. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching. Thank you very much. And this has been Youth Ignited with Yaseen Kippie.